All right, we are live with Jay Pitts here at Agent After Hours. And sorry for the technical difficulties. I didn't realize it was going to make him download an app. So, Jay, give me 2 seconds because that link disappeared. So I'm going to share this real quick.
Sure.
And in the meantime, why don't you go ahead, just give me some background. I know I posted a little bit about your team and what you guys do, but give me some background on your team and kind of how you got started.
Sure. So I'm a second-generation real estate person, born and raised in and around the business. My father's a broker, property manager, auctioneer, team lead, that kind of thing. My uncle is also in the business. He owns a RE/MAX franchise. That's how I got linked up with RE/MAX. I was kind of always attached to RE/MAX. So my dad had a Wall Street Journal top 10 in the country team in terms of transactions in 2006.
Wow.
Something like 560 transactions, 20 agents. So I didn't go into real estate immediately. I went into the mortgage business, but then I don't know, it wasn't right. So I made the switch, but I'm in a different market than my folks. I'm about an hour and a half away from them.
Sure.
So, yeah, man, I got started that way. Out of the mortgage business in December of 2007. So right in time for the Great Recession. Made it through because I became a listing agent for bank foreclosed property. Fortunate or wise, whatever you want to call it. Probably some of both. Did a lot of deals. That kind of, I built a team surrounding that business, transitioned out of REO in about 2013. And built a team up until 2015. Then I started my brokerage with it.
Okay.
Brokerage in 2015, about this time of the year. So we just had our 3-year anniversary. Most of my team members became independent agents in my brokerage at that time. And then we started rebuilding again. So now we're at 15 total agents on the team, about 35 in the brokerage. And brokerage will do about 120 mil in volume. The team will do about 50 of that.
Awesome. Now, how did you go from, so you were running REOs, and I know that can be crazy in itself.
Yeah.
But how did you transition? Because that, for a lot of agents, that's kind of the kiss of death. They're once in REOs, they're always in REOs. And from 2006 to 2012, REOs were hot, right? They were everywhere. So, but how did you shift your business? Because that is a tough transition to go from an REO type business to what I'll call a traditional residential real estate.
Yeah. It wasn't easy. First thing I did was hire a coach. I gravitated, building a team as an REO listing agent, I gravitated toward a specific type of agent, an agent that was very more so like an independent. You being a broker owner, you can relate. And
Sure.
those of you that are watching, that team agents operate very differently than independent agents from jump, right? So I was hiring team members, independent agents as team members. Now, remember, the market was tough and business was hard to come by. So I had leads. So, folks that probably weren't meant to be on teams were joining my team. And as long as I coached them a certain way, they stayed on my team, and it was very profitable because, not a lot of marketing in client acquisition when it comes to REO. Like when you get the accounts, you got the accounts. So, it was processing, man. And frankly, if I had to do all over again, I would have probably operated more like a business owner rather than a listing agent. Because I was doing a lot of stuff that was probably not dollar productive for me.
Sure.
I probably would have farmed the listings out to those agents that were very capable. And I would have left myself the opportunity to operate like a business owner. But hindsight's 2020. I made really good money. I worked really hard. I was young. My personal life was set up for that. We didn't have kids. My wife was a professional in building a career. So transitioning out, I hired a coach. Had some hard decisions, with the agents that were on my team for years that were extremely loyal. They had some hard decisions. Ultimately, what it led to was me starting a brokerage and allowing them to go out on their own under me. Okay.
Sure.
And some of them didn't come along, and that's just the way it had to be.
Yeah, we've all said, hey, it's just business.
Yeah.
And to say it doesn't affect you a little bit personally, it certainly
does.
does. But it's business, and we get it. So
Yeah, I call mine a tale of two teams. Like, I've had two teams in my career. It was really one team, but
yep.
It was one team up until this point, and then the team I have now is very different. It's almost unrecognizable because, you know, those agents, Tyler, they don't want to be told that they have to sit down and call leads. The ones that have been operating independently and generating sphere business, they don't want to be told that, you know, I'm gonna go spend a lot in marketing that's going to benefit them when the split that I have to charge on those marketing generated deals is not what they were getting on their sphere of influence, or, you know, that kind of thing.
Sure. Well, no, and you know, I know, you know, it's getting more and more expensive, and
yeah, for sure.
You know, it doesn't matter if it's Zillow or who it is, but everybody's increasing costs, so it is becoming increasingly difficult. And it's, you know, you're either competing on marketing, which those companies spend millions and millions of dollars, marketing, which we in turn absorb that cost, or you're discounting, which no one likes to do. And so either way, it's, you know, that pot's getting smaller. So
yeah,
I want to back up just for a second. So you've got your team, you've got the brokerage. You also run the resource podcast.
Yes.
And so if you guys, and I'm going to open this up for questions anytime. If you guys have questions, drop them in the comments and we'll put them up on the screen. But give listeners or watchers, viewers, whatever you want to call it, tell me a little bit about the resource podcast. It's just kind of your insight to the market and the industry. And looks like it's super well produced. So.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. So I've got I call him my podcast guru, my co-host, Mr. Gabe Pruitt. So shout out to him. You could follow him at resource_podcast on Instagram, or find it on any of the social channels, find us on iTunes. But so I was challenged by my coach, the same coach that I hired back in the day. Now I've since switched, but the same coach that I was talking about that I hired to make that REO transition, I was challenged by him because of the relative small size of our market, which, you know, Dayton's not all that different than Louisville. I don't know how many realtors you guys have. We have like 4,000.
I was going to say about 3,500 in Dayton, and then we're in the northern part of Cincinnati, and there's about 6,000, 6,500 down there.
So Louisville's a relatively small market in terms of agent count. Now, everybody here thinks 4,000 is outrageous, but, you know, we have 2 million people in the metro area, you know, surrounding counties that we service. Including Louisville Metro, major market, our major market. But he said, look, there's no one else your age, which this was several years back. I mean, I'm 36.
You're just a young chap, right?
I'm 36 now. This was probably, you know, 3 or 4 years ago we had this conversation. There's nobody approaching your production at your age. You have this clear opportunity to establish yourself as the preeminent next generation team lead, broker, etc. But you need to put yourself out there. Something that I up until that point, I was very comfortable flying below the radar, just doing my thing, you know, not worried about it. I'm the team lead that gives his agents credit for their own production. Like they don't even have to code their stuff under me in the MLS. So like I never wanted the accolades, you know, from that stemmed from their production. I always wanted to get them as much recognition as I could. So anyway, he told me I needed to step out there. And so in investigating ways to do that, we looked at doing a radio show. And if you've ever looked into radio advertising, essentially what a show is advertising.
Yeah.
I mean, none of the radio stations in town are going to put a real estate show on the radio because listeners are going to show up and listen. You have to pay for that space. And so radio is
expensive.
It's really expensive. And so I just decided, like, I can do this a lot cheaper myself. Yeah. So I had Gabe do some research. He told me what equipment we needed. Fortunately, he's a musician and has some background in sound editing and recording and that kind of thing. So he you know, had a pretty good grasp of what it would take. So anyway, we found it about $2,000 worth of equipment. Literally a couple $100 in Facebook ads to boost it to an audience that we wanted to get, you know, listenership from. And that's how it got started. Literally, I originally wanted to make a show that both consumers and agents could appreciate. And then I realized pretty quickly that consumers are not going to listen. There's only
the audience.
Well, the only way I could get consumers to listen would be to talk about like who's the best home warranty company, and that was just terribly boring to me.
Right.
And you're still going to get very minimal engagement with that. So I decided to make what I felt like was a compelling show for realtors.
Yeah.
And what I found is that consumers appreciated that more. They almost appreciated the behind the scenes, like people that knew me, people that were friends of friends would listen because they wanted to hear what I was coaching my agents to do.
Sure.
What I was teaching behind the scenes type stuff. And so it's just kind of ballooned from there, man. And we're I think 53 episodes in.
Awesome.
Something to that effect.
Now, what's the consistency on that? Because content is king, but consistency, I've always said, is key.
Yeah.
So what is the consistency? Because I've done different podcasts and shows, and I've been inconsistent. I've been bad at it. So,
well, I did weekly for basically a year. I would say a little, miss here and there, but I mean, there were weeks where we recorded 4 episodes because I knew I wasn't going to be able to record for the next 3 weeks.
Sure.
And consistency was a big commitment of mine. And we hit kind of a crescendo, I feel like, this past summer when we were approaching a year in. And like I said, it wasn't quite a year, but it was pretty much a year of doing it weekly, rain or shine. We hit a crescendo with some big guests, and then we re-examined, as we always do. You expect what you inspect. So I went back and looked at the show, and I've kind of made some strategic decisions to slow down the content push for a little while in preparation for kind of reinventing the show.
Yeah.
We're going to do here pretty soon, no later than the first of the year. We're going to be rolling out a kind of a little bit of a kind of a 2.0 kind of deal.
Sweet. So diving back into, before I dive back into that, how has the podcast helped your agents? How has it helped your recruiting efforts? It made you a brand, right?
Yeah. Well, here's what I'll say. Originally, or at one point, I felt like and I appreciate you saying that because I always did agree. I felt the content was very good. But if you're an agent out there considering doing a podcast, you need to keep your expectations in check because there is only one Bigger Pockets podcast, right? There is only one Joe Rogan podcast.
Right.
Like you're not going to go viral.
You're not going to be serial.
Yeah, you're not going to be serial. You're not going to go viral and get 1 million listens per episode. It's just probably not going to happen in the real estate space.
Yeah.
And I, that partially is the reason why we're reinventing the show. But it has been very successful despite the fact that it is not serial. It has helped me recruit agents.
Sure.
Recruit agents with big production in my market. It has helped me land clients that it's given me tons of legitimacy. It's given me an ever-present kind of opportunity to coach my agents.
Yeah.
Because on demand for them, they can hear my opinion about a certain topic.
Well, it's the Gary Vaynerchuk, who gives a shit if, 5 or 10 people are listening, not 5 and 10,000, because those 5 and 10 people, they're going to be your super fans. They're going to be the ones that are, on the street saying, oh, you need to call Jay Pitts if you're looking to sell your house.
Sure. Well, I'll give you an example from a broker owner recruiting standpoint. One of our most avid listeners, who is now an agent of our brokerage, was an agent of another brokerage who I had a very good relationship with. It sold over 100 homes last year. I had her as a guest on my show, invited her into the office for an office meeting the following week. In good faith, like I will say that she had told me that she had no plans of ever leaving where she was.
Sure.
And then she approached me shortly after and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you about this. And so, when you talk about like inbound marketing and content marketing, that's the kind of response you want. And if that's the only thing it ever gets me, that was enough.
Yeah. Well, that's not to quote Gary again, but it's the thank you economy. You're just putting information out there and getting, not asking for anything in return, but the results are speaking for themselves.
Sure.
So
I agree.
So you run a huge team, you run a brokerage, you run a podcast. How do you juggle it all? How do you manage? And you got a family?
I do. 2 little ones.
Yep.
I will say first and foremost, my wife works here in the brokerage.
Sure.
She is smarter than me. And I couldn't do it without her, number one. She is director of ops for both the brokerage and our property management business. And she plays an integral role on our team, though she doesn't sell. She doesn't have a license. She is pretty much the antithesis of me when it comes to that. Like, she is behind the scenes, like an operator versus out in front. So there's that, number one. Number two, I've got really great agents. I've got really good staff, really amazing people that work here. You know, I always say that, you know, the measure of a leader is the quality of people that choose to follow them. And I've just been very fortunate. I made a lot of mistakes in leadership in my life, but it's something that I've worked at passionately. And I think I've finally gotten myself, I'm not saying we've arrived, but I've gotten myself to a place where I feel like I'm a good leader.
Yeah.
And I think it's echoed in, and it's a two-way street, right? Like, a leader can't be good without good people, and good people can't be good without a good leader. So it's just, we found this.
Sorry,
situation.
I've got Alexa going off in the background.
Sorry.
Whatever we said must have triggered her. So,
dude, that happens to me when Amazon commercials come on the television.
Oh yeah,
it's pretty wild.
Yeah, but to your point, I mean, I'd love to say I'm responsible for, and we've got 100+ great agents. I mean, amazing agents. But it's this culture that kind of forms on, you know, has created itself, and it's incredible to watch it grow and to see it mature. So,
well, I will tell you this, man. My team mantra right now is right team, right time, and that's just. I told you earlier. I'm big on sayings. I've got this repetitive memory. So, right team, right time to me means that we found the right people, and it's the time is right for us to do great things. And I haven't always felt like that, you know, but we're there now.
Oh, sometimes it's, you know, blind mouse looking for cheese, you know. Where do we go? Where do we go next?
Yeah. No, I agree.
So you shifted your business. What's your biggest source of business now?
Sphere, without a doubt.
So I know you're a coaching client, and I'm sure you guys, how are you marketing to your Sphere?
So that's an interesting question. This year specifically, we have made this the year of the client. And I have hosted a client party once a month for this entire year. It was something that I felt like I did not do well enough in years past.
Sure.
You know, we're consistently 65 to 75% Sphere across our entire book of business. You know, we do Zillow, we do PPC, we do Facebook, we do, you know, Curator, we do the whole nine. I mean, I'm big on inbound marketing. I'm big on, you know, lead gen and conversion, but it's all about relationship building. And I hadn't loved on the clients enough. Yeah. You know, I mean, I will say, and if you go back and watch the podcast episode where I had Chris Smith on, he talks about how your service, is your marketing.
Yeah.
And that's rooted in the idea that how you leave people feeling at the end of a transaction or at the end of any interaction, that's your biggest piece of marketing out there. And I'm a firm believer in that. But just that.
In Boston, by the way.
What's that?
So I missed you in Boston.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean, hey, Boston's Boston. I got to go to Fenway.
Nice.
For the playoffs. Anyway, I just I believe we'd always done a good job of leaving people with the right impression, but we hadn't gone back to them to say thank you again and to get that opportunity to remind them of how they felt.
Sure.
We did a great job for them. And so that's what this year was about.
So tell me, so you're doing parties once a month, and obviously with your volume, it's not as big of a concern that no one's going to show up. But I think that's a fear for a lot of agents that, hey, I'm going to host this great event. I'm going to spend, you know, a lot of money on this, and no one's going to show up. So what does your event look like? Are you holding it at your office? Are you holding it at a different venue? Give me the details.
Well, dude, after going on 12, I will tell you we've done just about everything at this point.
Sure.
So some big, some small, some here, some there. We had to really get creative. I will say that, the tried and true works. We rented a movie theater out and we screened Incredibles 2 for the families. We had about 300 people there.
Sure.
That was awesome. I don't know if you guys have this in Dayton, but do you have like the axe throwing deal, like where you have the targets and you throw axes?
We don't in Dayton. We do in Columbus, and I've seen quite a few friends post, and it looks like an awesome time.
I rented the whole place out. We had 16 bays throwing 4 people throwing axes at a time.
Wow.
That wasn't the biggest, but it was pretty good size. Did some really cool, had a really cool restaurant cater, some good craft beer, and people just had a blast. That was a good one. We did some small ones too. We did, which we just did the Pumpkin Patch 2 weeks ago. That was about 150, which honestly, our attendance has trailed slightly toward the end of the year because I just think like people have been to so many now.
They're like, I've seen Jay enough.
I've seen him enough. So the reason we did every month is what we had the idea that not every event would apply to every person, and we wanted to touch every single person in our database at least once throughout the year. But anyway, I think we've successfully achieved that at this point. We
did last year, and it was huge.
It is huge. I tell you what.
We tried to do it again this year, and unfortunately, the movie theater that we were going to do went under renovations. We were going to do The Incredibles too.
Oh man!
I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" So
that's a bummer.
For next year.
Consider this advice. You don't have to do a big event to make it meaningful. We did a self-defense class where I met this guy through an agent that works for me that is a Krav Maga expert and MMA instructor and has taught like several corporate self-defense seminars. And that's a topic in real estate. So I had all my agents come.
Sure.
And then we invited 40 or 50 clients. We got about 30 to 35, and it was a good event. I mean, we didn't have but about 50 people in the whole thing, in the whole gym, but people loved it.
And they're going to say, "Oh, Jay invited me to this. I learned this at."
And it was and it's something no one else did. We did one of my agents is a fitness instructor, and she teaches classes at a local studio. We invited people to come take a class. We could only get 24 in the class. We did three of them. We had like 18, and 18. And it cost next to nothing. But that's, 54 people that we got to have a really intense and more personal experience with.
Yeah. No, those are all incredible events. I wish we had the axe throwing place a little closer to me. But so you got a lot going on. You're doing client events, podcast, brokerage, family.
True.
How do you, I understand managing is tough, but is there any software or tech tip or anything that you can give that would help agents that are trying to, get to the next level? What helps you on a daily basis?
This is, I don't know, it may not be like groundbreaking. I mean, tech tips,
First of all, let me back up and say there's way too much emphasis on tech in our industry.
There is. I mean, pick it and stick it is what I say. I mean, like any CRM will work. The reason people complain and trade CRMs like they change their underwear is because they don't use them properly.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't matter if it's Follow Up Boss, which is what we use, or Contactually, or Boomtown, or whatever. Lion Desk, any of those. You got to use it. You got to use it. We use Follow Up Boss.
Same.
I'm a Google Apps nut. Like anything Google, I am using. I think you need to know the appropriate time to be high tech and the appropriate time to be low tech. You need to know what's impactful for you. That's important. I mean, as far as here's the only other thing that I can say, and it's just that I know what makes me the best version of myself. And the more discipline you can have in those areas, the more successful you'll be. I personally am just simply a better human being when I take care of myself, when I work out, when I get decent sleep.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I haven't mastered the diet yet. I would probably be hooked on it if I ever did, because I'm addicted to those improvements that I see from those other areas in my life. I need to probably do better at it. But dude, I'm just literally a better person if I worked out that day.
It's awesome. No, it's true. Are you a BombBomb user?
I am a BombBomb user.
It's one of those things. Excellent tool, but you just got to use it, right?
You know, I use BombBomb to distribute our email campaigns.
Do you use it to invite people to your events?
I do. But I don't send enough one-to-one videos. I should do that more. I should use it to prospect more. I think it's golden.
Oh yeah.
For that. And I just don't do it.
No, I'm guilty.
Yeah.
I actually had an agent call me out on it the other week. She got my automated, because I'm a BombBomb prompt, and the Remax email went out, and she was like, "Hey, love BombBomb prompt, but if you're talking about culture, you should probably include a video." And it was because I was at the Curator conference, and I was like, "Yep, I'm guilty." But she was cool about it. She was like, "I would just want to know maybe a little bit more about your culture, and a video would be helpful." So it's on my to-do list of, hey, I'm actually going to make her a video and send it to her and say, hey, here's a little bit more about our culture.
Love it. Love it.
Well, Jay, I can't thank you enough for joining us today. Again, guys, check out, it's the Resource, that's capital R-E Source podcast. And I had that up there. Is this the correct? It's at @RESource_podcast on Instagram.
Yes, and you can type in my name is probably the easiest way to find us on iTunes to give it a follow, or you can go to resourcepodcast.net, and that'll link you to Stitcher, SoundCloud, iTunes, wherever you consume your podcasts. We're there. So
sweet. All right, man. I appreciate you joining, and look forward to hanging out with you again soon.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me.
Yep. See ya.
All right, guys.